Hey, what's up? It's Jared with Ditch Auto, and I have the Neewer 35mm f1.7 manual lens for Sony E-mount here. And what turned me on to this lens was the price. I mean, this lens is well under $80, and how could you go wrong with a lens that you spend under $100 on? And that's really what I wanted to find out. So I ordered it. It's from Amazon, is where I ordered it from. I'll put a link in the description below. Neewer is a brand that I've seen all over Amazon. All of their products are inexpensive photography products, and you probably, if you've bought something photography related off of Amazon, it probably was a Neewer product. So I had to check it out when I saw that they had lenses, because I love alternative lenses to Sony or Zeiss or the main names that are out there, and I wanted to see how is this going to perform? Is it going to be a lens worth using or even buying at that price point? So let's talk a little bit about what this lens is and what it isn't. Now, what it is a fully manual lens, which means the lens has no electronic components at all. I mean, if you take the lens off of the camera and you look at the back of it, there are no leads on the lens at all to communicate with the camera. So when you put this lens on your camera thinks it's a lens cap. It doesn't even realize that it is a lens, which is not a problem. You could still use it. It's just that your camera isn't going to know what your f-stop is. So if you try to shoot in, say, aperture priority mode or shutter priority mode, it's going to confuse the heck out of your camera. Like, you're going to have to shoot in manual mode with this, or maybe full automatic mode would work as well. But those auto-assisted modes are definitely going to have a little bit of a challenge using this lens, because it's not going to know where the aperture is on the lens. Now, another thing is when you're trying to get focus, and this is a manual lens, so if you've ever gone in manual focus and then adjusted your lens manually, your focus manually, typically the camera would zoom in and help you. It would assist you in getting focus. Now, the camera has no idea that you're rotating the ring, so it doesn't know to punch in and give you that manual focus assist. So that doesn't work either. And that's a bummer. That's an extremely useful feature, especially those who like to use manual focus when shooting photography. And then even those that are trying to shoot video, manual focus assist is a fantastic feature on mirrorless cameras like this, but it doesn't work because the camera doesn't know there's a lens. So you have to use something like focus peaking in order to try and maintain focus or get focus on something. And I noticed that focus peaking is kind of a mess with this lens. I have a 35mm Zeiss Loxia, which has an extreme cost, much more expensive than this. And in comparing the focus peaking on that lens versus this lens, the camera definitely has a much harder time with this lens than it does with the Zeiss Loxia 35mm. So focus peaking also was kind of a problem. Where I ended up kind of finding my happy place with this lens is shooting landscapes and stuff where I know I was going to be pretty close to infinity with focus anyways. Everything was kind of far away, so I just set it to infinity and got my photos that way. And I knew that things off in the far distance were going to be in focus because they're at that infinity length, versus things up close, which might be a little bit harder to focus on. Now, if you're a landscape photographer, shooting full manual like this isn't necessarily a problem, because you put your camera on a tripod, you get your focus, you spend some time getting everything set up, and then you take your shot. And that's not as big of a deal. But when you're shooting portraits or anything else for that matter, where your subject might move or shift its position, you're going to have a hard time with this lens maintaining focus, because there just isn't any way for your camera to really give you assistance there. Now, I mean, you can manually punch in, but it just becomes kind of a problem with the manual focus assist. It is not as useful. So I have this lens on the A6500. Mine may look different because I have the cage on the A6500 still from doing my ultimate vlogging setup video, which I'll link in the description below. But This lens I used this last week while camping with my family. My wife and I went on a hike, and I put this lens on, and I tried just using this lens as much as I could, getting shots because I knew they were going to be handheld landscape type shots. Everything was going to be far off in the distance, and so just setting my focus to infinity and then worrying about my exposure with the manual aperture ring. That's all I really had to do, and I was getting great shots. Now, this lens isn't obviously performing as well as my Zeiss Loxia. The Zeiss Loxia is nice and sharp from edge to edge. There's a little bit better hand control on the lens because it's a little bit bigger. There's just a lot of benefits to that lens over this one. But factor in the cost. I mean, this lens is well under $100. That other lens is a bit over $1,000. So if you're looking for a fixed focal length lens or like a prime lens, this 35mm, I mean, you can go with all of the newer branded manual lenses, which I think there's 3 of them for the Sony, and still have enough money left over to buy gosh, I mean, you'll have hundreds of dollars left over. Anyway, so the performance of this lens was pretty good. I mean, obviously, manually focusing is a challenge. There's limited options there for my photography because I'm more on the go. I'm handheld, and shooting manually focus is not going to work out too well for me in most of my situations. However, when shooting video, manual focus becomes a little bit easier to deal with. In shooting video, I like having that manual focus. Now, the focus peaking I usually would rely on, and it has become a little hard to use with this lens in particular, but I could still make it happen. And trying to shoot video with this, I was able to pull it off. Now, another thing is maybe you're shooting video and you're on a gimbal or something like that. Having a nice lightweight package so that the gimbal can stay balanced is important. Or, if you just want a nice lightweight photography package, like this is going to be it. I mean, minus the cage, of course, adds a little bit of weight. But the camera and this lens are extremely tiny and lightweight, and it makes for a really nice package, so long as you're okay with everything being manual. So price for performance is definitely there. Sure, it's no Zeiss, it's no Sony lens. You're not going to get the same performance out of this lens as you're going to get out of lenses that are $400-500+. But for the price, it is fantastic. One of the things that I really got into after getting Sony cameras is old vintage lenses and adapting them to the camera. And I love doing that. I mean, I'd be in the same boat. They're full manual because none of those lenses have electronic communication with the camera. And they gave me a unique look and style out of my camera that I wasn't able to achieve. And that's kind of what you're able to get here with this newer 35mm lens. It's a new lens, so you don't have any of that gross, moldy, distortion-y nonsense that you would get on buying some old lens at a yard sale. However, you're spending, hardly anything on a lens like this, and you're getting a different focal length that you might not already have. And that is fantastic in and of itself. I love occasionally shooting with just a manual lens because it really makes you work hard for your shot. I mean, when you have autofocus, you can fire away and get all sorts of great shots, and you're relying on your camera to do a lot of the work. But when your camera is essentially fully manual, you're really having to work to make sure you get the shot. You have to manually adjust your aperture because it can't automatically do that. You have to manually adjust your focus because your camera isn't going to be able to do it for you. And so it really helps you train your eye and become a better photographer when you can take some of those jobs that the camera typically has and do them yourself with your eyes. And it makes it much more challenging to take pictures and get good photos that are sharp and in focus. But when you're able to, master that or get better at it, I think it helps you as a photographer. So I believe all photographers should have a manual lens, and they should spend some time taking photos with fully manual lenses such as this. So if you agree with me, definitely click on the link in the description below so that you could check out this lens as well as the couple of other models I think they have, which I'm definitely going to be checking out as well because I was impressed with this lens. For a lens of this price, that's brand new, that works on my Sony cameras. It's definitely worth having when I don't want to have my, you know, $1,300 or $1,400 Zeiss lens on my camera. Maybe I'm, you know, going to a I'm going hiking or something like that, and I just don't want to carry something expensive in case it falls. At least I'm only damaging my camera and a cheap lens versus my camera and an expensive lens. So there is pros to having some basic lenses like this. So check out the links in the description below. Let me know what you think, especially if you have one of these. I'd love to hear about your thoughts on it. Throughout this video, I've been showing you some of the photos that I took with this lens and some video clips, and you know, I hope that this video helps you kind of better understand what place a lens like this would have in your camera bag. It's definitely not going to be your main lens that you're going to shoot with all the time. It's definitely going to be a challenging lens to use, but at the price, you just can't go wrong. And lastly, 49mm, you know, if you're going to go for an ND filter, which definitely if you're going to be shooting landscapes and stuff with this lens, I would recommend throwing an ND filter on here so that you can widen up that aperture, you know, and get that shallow depth of field that you're able to get with that f1.7, which is great. So yes, the lens doesn't do a whole lot on its own. It's going to require you to step up as a photographer and make it all happen, but it is a decent lens and it was a lot of fun to use. So I recommend checking it out. Hey, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos from us, click on that subscribe button for subscribing to our channel. And like I said, the links are in the description below. I used it with a Sony a6500, so I linked that up below as well in case you're thinking about upgrading your camera body. I also have a video about this camera on this channel as well in case you want to learn more about it. This is a fantastic little package right here. And the a6300 is also really good if you don't need, you know, the 4K and whatnot to work in hotter situations. And another thing, you know, with this camera, it has the internal stabilization of the sensor, and that actually will work if you go in and set it to manually work with this lens. So you'll still get some stabilization, which is fantastic. So with that said, thanks so much for checking out this video, and I hope to see you soon back here on Ditch Auto. Thanks.